Asanason, to the Honorable, I call her Congresswoman, you call her Delegate, Donna Christensen, to her running mate, candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Basil Otley, to our two very distinguished Caribbean women, the Honorable Yolande Bain Horsford of Grenada, and the Honorable Dr. Gail Rigobert, leader of the opposition from St. Lucia, to the Honorable Dr. Una S.T. Clarke, Mama, to Stacy Plaskett, soon to be delegate for the United States Virgin Islands, to our dear senator here present, other elected and appointed officials here present, members of the clergy, sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening to each and every one. It's certainly my honor and my privilege to be here in St. Croix. Let me just say what a pleasure it is to be in the company of these Caribbean women of political distinction. Didn't they bring us wonderful messages this evening? I'd like to also thank the men who partner and support the women of political distinction. Accomplished and was that powered by? Is that the commercial? Just a little commercial interruption. Accomplished and powerful, the messages we received today is certainly food for thought and food for action. I want to thank my very good friend and colleague, the Honorable Donna Christensen, and her running mate, Mr. Basil Otley, for inviting me here to St. Croix and indeed to the United States Virgin Islands. We have a very important matter to ponder on this evening, and I think I'll take it back to the potential of girls in our civil society and their opportunities as they grow into womanhood for full leadership and participation in our great nation. And I think I started there because part of this conversation, it has been interwoven in some of the discussion so far is about a woman who traveled with me here today. And she's someone I'm extremely proud of, someone I love dearly, someone who literally, without whom I wouldn't be here today. And that is my mother, the Honorable Dr. Una S.T. Clarke. And I thought about, as we heard from the Honorable Dr. Gail Rigobert, the idea of womanhood and the definitions that surround leadership in womanhood. And my experience was a bit different as well, because I had a homegrown role model, someone who took the blows for being outspoken, for understanding that her leadership could not be bridled, but that she spoke for so many women and men and families and community that had not a voice in the city of New York. She started out as simply that parent that wanted to make sure that her children would receive a proper quality education in a big city like New York after immigrating to the United States from the beautiful island nation of Jamaica. She is a very proud Yardie, as those who are here will see. But it was really about navigating. And women navigate all the time. It is part of the sacrifice we make for family. Navigating the system, trying to understand where the soft spots are, if you will, to make our moves, to secure the well-being of ourselves and our families and the stability therein. And as a child, I traveled with my mother. She was one of those mothers that made sure I had a snack, a coloring book, a reading book, so that as the plotting in the meetings were taking place, I could be seen but not heard. I could sit quietly in the corner, and though the meetings may go late, I would not be hungry because the snack, sometimes corned beef on hard dough bread. For those of you who know, in Jamaica they call it bully beef. Along with a little something to drink in my coloring books. But they were organizing. Dr. Clarke understood that organizing makes the difference in the quality of life that we have as a people. And I learned this, I watched this, and I saw my mama do this. So to me, it was not something foreign when she said that I want to take my public service to another level. It was an expectation. It was a family decision. It was something that we knew about her, though the rest of the world did not know until she made it known. You see, we have those women amongst us today that have made those types of sacrifices, first of all, to navigate the system for home and family, but to open up the byways and the ability for others to come through. Because when Dr. Clarke decided that it was important for her to engage the public school system in New York, it was not just for Yvette Clarke or Leslie Clarke, her biological children, but there were so many young people in the community that needed that same quality education. She mobilized other parents who understood the significance of education in the lives of their children, that education will be the key to the success that made the travel from overseas well worth it. Understanding that there was a sacrifice made for these families to come without a map into a strange land to bring their talent, skill, and ability that had to be navigated, and that there would be a generation that would come after the first immigrants that had to make it too. And it was that type of lens into understanding service, first and foremost, to one another, that women bring to the agenda that is unique. It's not the ego. It is the necessity to change, to alter, to shape circumstances. That's so very important. And that's why I'm here with my sister, the Honorable Donna Christensen from Brooklyn, New York. Because I've seen her make those same types of sacrifices for the people of the United States Virgin Islands. I've seen her abiding commitment and love for the people of this beautiful part of the United States. You see, in Washington, you don't see Donna Christensen without saying United States Virgin Islands. You don't see Donna Christensen without saying, what about the territories? You don't see Donna Christensen without saying, what can we do to make sure that the quality of life for the people of the region is undergirded and protected during a time of fiscal instability. She made it clear by her presence, by her work ethic, in every single thing that she did, that she came to produce for a people who can sometimes become marginalized, who can sometimes be undervalued by virtue of proximity to the mainland. And in the CBC, we would say by virtue of the fact that they are people of African descent. Donna Christensen has been someone that I have looked to help shape and frame leadership skills. Because when I got to Washington, it was Dr. Christensen who was on the front line to make sure that the Caribbean region was being spoken for. That any nation bathed by these waters would not be marginalized, overlooked, undervalued, and left vulnerable in times of distress and challenge. And we all benefited. The people I represent in Brooklyn benefited. The people who live in the region have benefited. As a matter of fact, the people that she partnered with in Washington, D.C. benefited because of her wealth of knowledge, her understanding, and her abiding love and commitment to the people that she represents. Delegate Christensen, as an exceptional member of Congress, has been dedicated to supporting the rights of women and their inclusion in every facet of leadership in American life. It is critical for us in a nation where we categorize people and we set values based on those categories, that we continually beat the drum and raise our voices to make sure that our interests are addressed and are dealt with. As a licensed physician, she was a major contributing leader in the effort to craft and enact the Affordable Care Act, often referred to as Obamacare. When you say Obamacare, you better say Delegate Donna Christensen. And if you don't know, now you know, and I'm here to tell you why. When the law was being crafted, Donna Christensen served on one of the most exclusive and most powerful committees in the House of Representatives. It is called the Energy and Commerce Committee, where she served on the subcommittee of health. Wouldn't you know it, we would elect a man named Barack Hussein Obama. And he would come to Washington with a mandate on his mind. Now, this mandate is something that Donna Christensen had been planning and plotting and legislating around for quite some time. It had concerned her about the disparities in health between people of African descent and others. It had concerned her that so many people were uninsured and unable to access quality health care. She was an outspoken voice. She had been drafting legislation. She was concerned about community health centers, you know? And when the time came, and we had President Barack Obama in place, and he said, it is time now for us to bring health care to all those who did not have health care insurance, there was Donna Christensen, ready, prepared, locked and loaded. We didn't have to run around. We didn't have to draw up nothing. It was prepared. She just had to go, hit her computer button, and we were ready. When I say we, the entire Congressional Black Caucus got behind Donna Christensen because she was prepared day one. Day one. And she was so prepared that her legislation was embedded in the Affordable Care Act, the law that we all enjoy today. And so I am so very proud. So very proud. She may be humble, but she's powerful, and she gets the job done. Obamacare has become a critical part of securing the rights of women and their families. It is a gateway policy to opening a new chapter in the lives of women to full and active participation in our civil society. Do you understand what that means? Health care. Without our health, nothing else matters. You can't do anything else. Without women taking control of their reproductive abilities, your ability to start and grow families, life becomes even more challenging in the 21st century. You may be aware that prior to the Affordable Care Act implementation, insurance companies could and did discriminate against women, charging higher premiums to women and refusing to pay for basic reproductive health care, such as many forms of birth control, even in cases going so far as to designate that pregnancy was a pre-existing condition. A pre-existing condition. With the Affordable Care Act, that type of discrimination has become illegal and a practice of the past. As I've stated, Donna, as a member of one of the most powerful and exclusive committees on Capitol Hill, the Energy and Commerce Committee and its Subcommittee on Health, fought to secure substantially higher levels of support for the Virgin Islands. Through the expansion of Medicaid in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act and the Patient Protection Act, Affordable Care Act. The amount has been increased from $4.2 million in 1996 to $14 million in 2010 to $43 million in 2012. Who wants to know what Delegate Donna Christensen has done for the U.S. Virgin Islands? Well, I'm here to tell you. Her advocacy accrued to the benefit of the USVI, but also districts like mine in Brooklyn, New York, that has a similar demographic and socioeconomic challenges, enabling women and their families who weren't covered by their employers to access health care insurance for the first time in their lives. She is a leading voice for eliminating health care disparities in our communities, in communities of color. And it is communities like mine in Brooklyn and those across the United States, and certainly her beloved U.S. Virgin Islands, that owe her a debt of gratitude. In addition, you should know that through her political acumen and relationships in Washington, D.C., she has succeeded in preventing unfair property taxes to be placed upon the people of the United States Virgin Islands. She's obtained better border security for the USVI. She's secured an increase in duty-free exemption for travelers to the USVI from $1,200 to $1,600, and I'm loving that. She has assisted hundreds of Virgin Islanders, students, and young adults with scholarships, internships, opportunities to learn more about careers in law, healthcare, and public service, appointments to military academies, and the leadership development seminars. Who wants to know what Donna Christensen has done for the U.S. Virgin Islands. But you know, many challenges continue to confront us. In the United States Congress and in the legislative body here in the Virgin Islands, women, I do believe, remain underrepresented. Though the Virgin Islands has a better record of electing women than the mainland. Today, there are 99 women in Congress. That's out of 535 people. 20 in the US Senate and 79 in the United States House of Representatives. These numbers are the highest numbers in history and are a considerable achievement. Yet, women hold fewer than 1 in 5 of the total number of seats in Congress. Perhaps these numbers explain the refusal of our Republican colleagues in leadership in both the House of Representatives and the Senate to allow for a vote on the Equal Pay Act, a bill intended to reduce the disparities in wages between men and women. For today, women are paid only 77 cents for each dollar men earn, and for Black and Latino women, significantly less than 77 cents on the dollar. Well, this problem has very serious implications for our families, especially when women are the primary wage earners. As the price of basic necessities such as housing continues to increase, the underpayment, or I call it the wage theft from women, presents more of a threat to the stability of our communities and families. And in retirement, women, after a lifetime of employment, struggle to survive on retirement earnings and benefits that were adjusted to a rate at which they were underpaid in wages. I believe that we have the ability to solve this equation, for change will occur here in the USVI and occur in Washington, D.C. when we insist on it, when we demand it, and when we vote for it. In 2013, for example, the Violence Against Women Act was expanded to protect women who were immigrants, women living on native reservations. Now you want to ask yourself, who could be against that? Who could be against a law that protects women against violence? These protections were enacted only after a strident campaign by hundreds of thousands of women across the United States who raised the issue when Republican leaders in Congress initially refused to schedule a vote. Until recently, the problem of violence against women had been almost completely ignored in the media. But of course, when celebrities get caught on video, the whole thing seems to spin around. Our network television stations, our radio programs, and newspapers hardly mention the issue. The pervasiveness of sexual assault and violence between intimate partners in every community across the United States and its territories was ignored, particularly for women of color who were totally marginalized. At rallies on Capitol Hill, in letters to their elected representatives, in millions of posts on Facebook and Twitter, women proclaimed that this issue would not be ignored, that their voices could not be marginalized. The change had occurred because these women insisted on change. Already, much has been achieved by the efforts of women who demanded to participate in our politics, who insisted on a seat at the table, and the women and men of goodwill who supported them. Women like the Honorable Dr. Una Clarke, who has accompanied me here from New York, the first foreign-born woman to be elected to the New York City Council, shattering the glass ceiling of indifference to diversity and demanding the inclusion of the voice of immigrant women who remain an integral part of the development of our communities and whose children, I might add, go on to do extraordinary things. Each woman here this evening has demonstrated their leadership potential because you have insisted on your participation in these discussions that will determine our shared future and shared destiny. I want to speak to you about another woman, a woman of distinction in particular, who insisted on a seat at the table. She was one of my predecessors in the House of Representatives, also a Caribbean woman, the Honorable Shirley Chisholm. Her voice was a call to action in the civil rights movement to insist that women must have an opportunity to assume positions of leadership. Elected to the New York State Assembly in 1964 and to the House of Representatives in 1968, Congresswoman Chisholm insisted on a place at the table, despite resistance from many of the established members in Congress. You know, she used to have to share a chair in the committee room with other women who were on that committee. When she talked about early childhood education and child nutrition, she had the authority of her experience in the development of early childhood education in Brooklyn. Before she became an elected official, she was already a leader. She had already raised her voice on behalf of the community that she loved. Congresswoman Chisholm was a voice for the dispossessed, not only there in Brooklyn, but around the United States and indeed across the world. Her achievements in Congress were extensive. The establishment of nutrition assistance programs, health services for parents and children, expansion of the minimum wage. Sound familiar? The struggle always continues. All of us today are the beneficiaries of Shirley Chisholm's legacy. In 1972, Chisholm entered the campaign for the Democratic Party's nomination for president. There had never been a woman candidate for president in the Democratic Party or an African American candidate in either the Democratic or Republican Party. She had a button that explained, "Ready or not." And ready or not was exactly the idea. Shirley Chisholm realized that she could not wait until the United States believed that it was ready for an African American as president or a woman as president. The example of Shirley Chisholm continues to inspire women and men who hope to call our society to its convictions. Barack Hussein Obama stands on the shoulders of the Honorable Shirley Chisholm. And I dare say that Hillary Rodham Clinton stands on the shoulders of the Honorable Shirley Chisholm. Donna Christensen stands on the shoulders of the Honorable Shirley Chisholm. Her example continues to instruct us. Today, let us find inspiration in our courage of conviction. USVI, we need to shock the world with this election. And we need to rock the United States of America. Our girls need to know that there's a generation of women and men who support and partner with them, who have turned the page on gender subordination, who stepped up for gender diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Honorable Donna Christensen is indeed the embodiment of this virtue. Together, We will make this apparent to the world in real time by seizing this moment to make it a reality. God bless you all and enjoy the rest of the evening.